Everyone, I am Darrell Brown, Special Emphasis Program Manager for the African American Program. On behalf of the Special Emphasis Program, I would like to welcome all of you to our African American Black History Month presentation. National African American History Month is an annual celebration of achievements by Black Americans and a time for recognizing the central role of African Americans in our United States history. Since 1976, every United States president has officially designated the month of February as African American History Month. Throughout the month of February, we have held various educational opportunities to our workforce here at the Mint, such as African American women and the contributions they have made in our society. Today, we are very pleased and honored to have a guest speaker with us to share the whistle that changed America, the murder of Emmett Till. But first, I will read the proclamation from President Barack Obama in recognition of National American History Month for 2014. And this is the proclamation. Americans have long celebrated our nation as a beacon of liberty and opportunity, home to patriots who threw off an empire, refuge to multitudes who fled oppression and despair. Yet, we must also remember that while many of our shores to pursue their measure of freedom, hundreds of thousands arrived in chains. Through centuries of struggle and through toils of generations, African Americans have claimed rights long denied. During National African American History Month, we honor the men and women at the heart of this journey, from engineers of the Underground Railroad to educators who answered a free people's call for a free mind, from patriots who proved that valor knows no color, to demonstrators who gathered on the battlefields of justice and marched our nation toward a brighter day. As we pay tribute to our heroes, sung and unsung, of African American history, we recall the inner strength that sustained millions in bondage. We remember the courage that led activists to defy lynch mobs and register their neighbors to vote. And we carry forward the unyielding hope that guided a movement as it bent the arc of the moral universe toward justice. Even while we seek to dull the scars of slavery and legalize discrimination, we hold fast to the values gained through centuries of trial and suffering. Every American can draw strength from the story of hard-won progress, which not only defines the African American experience, but also lies at the heart of our nation as a whole. This story affirms that freedom is a gift from God, but it must be secured by His people here on earth. It inspires a new generation of leaders, and it teaches us all that when we come together for a common purpose, we can right the wrongs of history and make our world anew. Now therefore, I, Barack Obama, President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in the Constitution and by the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim February 2014 as National African American History Month. I call upon public officials, educators, librarians, and all of the people of the United States to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, and activities. In witness whereof, I hereto set my hand this 31st day of January in the year of our Lord 2014 of the independence of the United States, the 280th. This is from President Barack Obama. It is my pleasure to introduce our special guest, As a former professional baseball player, Byron Embry serves as a leadership and professional development consultant, combining life lessons and his experience as an athlete to connect with his audiences. Today, Byron Embry will be sharing a part of civil rights history and his personal stories and journeys. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Mr. Byron Embry. Please put your hands together.
It was 2:30 in the morning, the night of August 28th, 1955, and two white men, 24-year-old Roy Bryant and his half-brother, 36-year-old J.W. Milo, approached the home of sharecropper and part-time Baptist preacher Mose Wright. Armed with a .45 caliber pistol and a flashlight, they knock on the door. Mose Wright answers. Roy Bryant says, say Mose, do you have two boys that are staying with you from Chicago? I said, yeah, they're in the back asleep. He says, all right, I need to see you and the boy that was down at my store doing all the talking. As the men enter the home, the commotion wakes Elizabeth Wright, Mose Wright's wife. She says, what's going on here? Roy Bryant says, woman, you get back to bed. You got 5 seconds, and I better hear springs bouncing in that bed, or I start shooting. So they comb through the house with a flashlight until they eventually shine the light into the eyes of 14-year-old Chicago native Emmett Till. Are you the boy that was down in my store doing all the talking? He said, yeah. Don't say yeah to me, boy. I will blow your head off. Now get up, let's go. They drag the young man through the house. They're knocking over tables, lamps, and chairs. Mose Wright tries to plead with the men by saying, please don't take the boy. He's from Chicago. He didn't know any better. He's only 14. Just take him out back and handle it. But whatever you do, don't take the boy. I'll pay you whatever. They said, we're not interested. On the way out of the house, J.W. Milo looks at Roy Bryant, or looks at Mose Wright and says, Mose, how old are you? He says, 64, sir. Oh, 64. Okay. Well, let me tell you this. If you tell anybody you saw me here tonight, I promise you, you will not live to see 65. They drag the young man through the front yard. They hold his head up to the driver's side window of the truck. A female voice coming from inside the truck said, yeah, that's him. Upon receiving that verbal confirmation, they toss the young man in the back of the truck and they drive along a dark, dark road down the Mississippi Delta. He was never heard from again. Anytime you hear a whistle, it is often meant to get your attention. A police officer may use a whistle to stop traffic and then redirect it. In sports, you will have a whistle blown by a referee to stop play, or oftentimes stop play because there's been an infraction. This morning we're going to talk about a whistle that was blown on America. A whistle that caused America to stop play because there had been an infraction. A whistle that caused America to change directions. It's a whistle that indeed changed America. Mississippi, for a long time, has been regarded as the most racist state in the country. From 1863 to 1963, they had lynched, hung 571 African-American men, women, and children. Most of those lynchings were due to inappropriate contact with white women. These lynches were public. They were advertised. They were put in the paper. They were made to be a public spectacle. It was common. His families would grab their picnic blankets and their bags and their lunches and sit in front of a park as an African-American male was selected and hung. It was a form of entertainment. One of the most popular public lynchings was in the 18th century when Henry Smith, 15-year-old boy, with a mental disorder, actually, had been accused of a sexual assault on a white girl. A community in the South had gotten so enraged with the allegation, they wanted to use him as a real example. Prime example of what can happen. They put him on a parade float, chartered by horses. They paraded him around town as thousands gathered at the park around a nearby tree. They got him off the float, and he was hung. His feet dangled for mercy. The crowd cheered. Standing ovation rose when his feet finally stopped. But they weren't done. They burned the body at the stake. And community members, leaders, took body parts home for souvenirs as they went to the baseball game. As it turned out, Henry Smith was innocent. That was the South. Some of the custom. Well, in 1954, when the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Brown versus Board of Education, Mississippi was bent out of shape. Bent out of shape. The thought of integrating the schools was absolutely absurd. Community leaders said, now, wait a minute. You want us to open the door of our schools to these Negro children. What you're saying, in essence, is we're opening the doors of the school now, but it won't be long before you'll be asking us to open our bedroom doors too. That's what he said. One student at Ole Miss said, you're going to bring a black boy down here from the north who doesn't know the custom. Going to be innocent. And he's going to make an innocent gesture. And we will make an example out of him with repercussions that are so severe that the world will be talking about it for years. That was 1954. 1955, living in Chicago, was 14-year-old Emmett Till. Emmett lived there with his mother, Mamie, who was from Mississippi, who had moved to Chicago when she was young, around the age of 2. She raised Emmett by herself. His father was killed in World War I. And Emmett was your typical 14-year-old boy. He was lively, great personality, loved baseball, loved to talk, liked the party. Great kid. Emmett's issue was that he didn't take too kindly to authority. One of those kids that wanted to challenge everything. Well, that summer, he was paid a visit by his great uncle, Mose Wright, and 2 of his cousins, who had never been to Chicago at the time. They're going to ball games, they're going to the mall, they're able to do things they couldn't do in Mississippi. They invited Emmett to come back home with them. Hey, school starts in 2 weeks, we'll have you back here in plenty of time. Emmett loved the idea. Mom didn't. He said, Mom, I've always wanted to go. Why can't I just go this one time? She said, you know what? I'll let you go. But let me tell you ahead of time. Mississippi is not Chicago. You better humble yourself and humble yourself quick. You don't speak to anyone like. You don't say anything they don't like. If a white male or female is walking on the side of the road, you step off the side and you let them pass and don't turn around. You don't disagree with anything. But hear me loud and clear. When it comes to white women, whatever you do, don't look her in the eye. Looking her in the eye will be considered rape or molestation. Emmett, they'll kill you for less. Do you understand? I said, yeah, Mom, I got it. No, do you understand? They will kill you for less. He said, I got it. I got it. He said he understood. A few days later, he aborted the train. He and his cousin. As they get to the train station, Emmett immediately hops on the train. His mother said, now, wait a minute. Aren't you going to give me a kiss goodbye? How do I know I'll ever see you again? I said, Mom, why would you say something that crazy? He said, here, take my watch. I won't need it where I'm going. I've got my ring. My father's ring. To show all the fellas. When he got on that train, Emmett Till said in her biography, I knew I would never see my son again. She knew his personality, and she knew the personality of Mississippi. And she knew the two of them were on a collision course. Emmett arrives to Mississippi and they fall in love with him. His northern accent, his green eyes, the personality, all the stories of the big city. Emmett became virtually popular. Unfortunately, the attention made him too popular. As he began to flirt with the lines of what was considered racially tolerable. One afternoon while playing a softball game, he takes out a centerfold of a magazine of a white swimsuit model. They said, Emmett, put that away. If someone sees you with that, they're liable to kill everybody out here. This is not Chicago. He said he got it, said he understood. But he kept pushing the line, pushing the line, pushing the line. Until finally, on the evening of August 24th, he crossed it. It was about 6 o'clock in the afternoon, 6 o'clock in the evening on a Wednesday night. He and 6 boys, 1 girl, had gone to church. They decided to sneak out the back of the church and hop in the Mose Rice 1941 pickup truck and to drive into the town of Money, Mississippi. And there in the town of Money was the Bryant General Store. General store where kids of sharecropping families would go buy candy and chips at your normal convenience store. Emmett was right outside the store, about 20 feet, talking to some guys and just being kids. His cousin tells the story the best when he said, I was on the porch playing checkers with another individual, with an adult male. I happened to hear Emmett talking about having a white girlfriend in Chicago. One of the older boys said, you know what, you've been here not even a week yet. And all you've done is talk. Well, let's see how brave you are. There's a white lady working in the store all by herself. I dare you. I dare you. Walk in the store and ask her on a date. Emmett popped his collar and said, I'm from Chicago. I do this all the time. Everybody watch this. There's the boys crowd around a nearby window. Emmett walks into the store. There working in the store was 21-year-old Carol Bryant, beauty pageant winner, and the wife of store owner Roy Bryant. Nobody knows what really happened in the store. It was her courtroom testimony that was able to shed any light on it whatsoever. What we do know is that one of Emmett's cousins raced into the store, drug him out, and on the way out of the store, Emmett Till does the unthinkable. He whistles at her and says, Goodbye, baby. Emmett's cousin said, I'm playing checkers. Well, the young boy walks up to me and says, man, your cousin's crazy. He just whistled to Kel Bryant and said, goodbye, baby. Immediately, the gentleman I was playing checkers with jumps up from the table and says, you better get out of here and get out of here now. I turn around, Carol Bryant bolts right out of the store, says she's going to her car to get her gun. She could have shot. And there is not a jury anywhere in Mississippi that would have convicted her. He whistled at her. That's sexual assault. The boys understand they're in trouble. They hop in the truck and they drive. They're laughing and joking, thinking they got away, but those laughs and the cheer quickly disappeared when they realized they're being followed. They hurry up and they speed down the side of the road. They hop off to the side of the road and run through a cotton field as the car following them passes them. The one girl that's with them said, you're not getting away with this one. This is a mistake you will pay for. All of a sudden, the arrogant, the cocky, 14-year-old Chicago native is nervous. He said, all right, nobody say anything. Don't tell Papa Moses, don't tell anybody, just say nothing. That was Wednesday. Thursday, nothing happened. Friday morning, Friday afternoon, no one said anything. People in the community could not understand why Roy Bryant didn't address the issue. The reality was he was out of town. When he got back late Friday night and got to work Saturday morning, he'd heard about it. Heard that a black boy from Chicago had whistled at his wife. Carol Bryant, of course, tried to downplay it because she didn't want any trouble. But that was too much for him to handle. He didn't have a car. So he calls his brother-in-law, J.W. Milo. He says, hey, I need to borrow your car. He says, well, I got stuff going on. Can't wait till tomorrow. He says, no. Here's what happened. He tells him. J.W. Milo says, I'll be here in the morning. He drove back to Greenwood 30 miles. His wife was out of town. Milo said he tossed and turned all night long till about midnight. Couldn't sleep. He got up, filled his car full of gas, went back into town, knocked on the door of Roy Bryant and said, we're going to do this right now. Let's go. Of course, they run, make the kidnapping. About 7 o'clock in the morning, Emmett hadn't returned. Mose Wright, his wife Elizabeth, the kids in the house didn't sleep for the rest of the night, hoping that every car that drove by would be them returning him. And that morning, Willie Green, 19-year-old, was on his way out of the house when he heard a beating and the yells of a kid coming from a nearby shed. He says, Mom, I think somebody's getting beat in the shed. He walks back out to go to the store and he witnesses J.W. Milam washing out the bed of his truck. It was full of blood. Milam spots him and says, did you see anything? Green says, no, I didn't. I saw nothing. Back at the house, as I stated, Emmett hadn't returned. Mose Wright said, we got to do something. We need to call the police, but I can't. If I call the police, they will come back tonight and they may kill everybody in the house. He warned me. At least got to call his mother. Emmett Till received the frantic phone call that she'd been fearing. Her son's missing. She said, right now there's no time to panic. She called every newspaper, every radio station, every television station there in Chicago. Within 6 hours, everybody knew. Folks out of Chicago had put the heat on the citizens and the community and the law enforcement officials in Money, Mississippi that said, go find this boy now. They looked. And they looked. And they looked. Couldn't be found. Finally, 3 days later, 16-year-old Roger Hodges is fishing in the Tallahatchie River when he sees two knees sticking up out of the water. He runs to a nearby place, makes a phone call to Sheriff Strider. The sheriff, there's a body in the river. You may want to come check this out. Strider and his deputies had gone to the Tallahatchie River. As they dragged this body out of the river, body weighed about 250 pounds, seems to be an adult. He says, well, this doesn't look like a 14-year-old boy, but we really need to call, make sure. They call Mose Wright. He comes out to try to identify the body. The body was so badly mangled that Mose Wright said, I don't think it's him. Until they turned the young man over on his right-hand side, they noticed the ring with his father's initials. The body was then identified as 14-year-old Chicago native Emmett Till, found with a barbed wire tied around his neck and attached to a 75-pound cotton gin fan. Mose Wright said, yeah, that's him. Sheriff Strider said, well, I'm sorry about your loss, but you've got 24 hours to bury this body. Oh, no, Sheriff, he's from Chicago, he's not from here. We got to send the body back. No. I don't care where he's from. He died in Mississippi, and you're going to bury him in Mississippi. Not, we'll do it. They prepare for this funeral 24 hours later. Maybe Phil hadn't even been notified yet. Late that night, he makes the phone call. As everybody had gathered to her house, her mother, her friends, her sisters, waiting to hear the good news. But the word that came, it stated, they found the body. And he was gone. They said you could feel the atmosphere just collapse in the entire house. It's gone. The problem is they want to start the funeral tomorrow morning. We can't get the body back in time. They go to this funeral. The funeral starts. And finally, the officials came in and said, no, we're going to send the body back to Chicago. Some officials got involved. We're shooting the body back. But there's only one condition. We'll send it back under one condition. You never, ever open this casket. He said, okay. The body was then flown back to A.A. Rayner, one of the few black funeral directors in the city of Chicago. Emmett Till has to go identify the body. She walks in and the body is still in a box. She said, Mr. Rayner, are you going to open the casket? He said, no, ma'am, I can't. She said, why not? Well, the arrangement in getting the body here was contingent on us never opening the casket. She said, do you have a hammer? He said, yeah. What do you need a hammer for? He goes, well, either you're going to open it, or I'm going to open it, but somebody's going to open this casket today. He said, give me a couple hours, and I'll have it open. She goes home. She returns 3 hours later. She got a block away from the funeral home, and you could smell the body. She walked. Got into the funeral home, and the place just reeked. But because of the emotion and because of the intensity and the adrenaline, she said she couldn't smell anything. She said, I better start at the bottom of the casket to prepare myself for what I'm about ready to see. She walks. She notices that his male genitalia had been removed. She walked. Notice that his tongue was gone, lips gone, nose gone, eyes gouged out, ears gone. as they try to sever his skull with an axe. She looks behind and sees daylight behind the ear. She said, after all that, they had to shoot him? Time magazine took the famous picture of her collapsed into the floor, screaming, "Not my baby. Lord, no, not my baby." A.A. Raymond tried to console her. She said, "Ma'am, we can do makeup, we can do anything you want with the body, with the funeral." She said, no. Don't touch the body. Don't touch it. I want an open casket funeral. I want the world to see what they did to my son. Her exact words were, "Let them see what I saw." 50,000 people came to the funeral. 50,000. Every sixth or seventh person had to be escorted by the casket. So many people fainted at the sight. His teammates, his schoolmates, his neighbors, his friends, all had to walk past that casket one by one. September 6th, 1955. Ironically, that same day in Mississippi, there was a landmark case brewing. For the first time in state history, 2 white men are now indicted for the murder of a black child. They're thinking, for what? He whistled at his wife. What did y'all want him to do? Now, I'm sorry what happened to the boy, but this is the South, and this is what we do. No one liked Bryant and Milam to begin with, but they had to defend their way of life. Of course, finding attorneys to defend the case was going to be nearly impossible. So they put jars at churches, at stores, at banks, and people would make deposits in restaurants, make deposits to raise money for the legal defense team. 3 attorneys realized this case may not be so difficult. Number one, this is Sumner County. There are no black voters, so you'll have no blacks on the jury. Number two, you have no eyewitnesses. Like, who's going to testify? Number 3, you can't prove that's the body. It's all circumstantial. No witnesses. No one's going to testify to what they saw. Emmett Till said, "You know what, I'll testify. I can identify the body by the ring on his finger." When they heard that, the community around Tallahatchie County and Sumner County were livid. Hate mail flooded her home. One letter said, "Ma'am, you come on down here and testify. Come down here and testify, and I promise you, we'll do to you what we did to him, and we were nice to him. Come on down and see what happens." Thinking it would intimidate her, it encouraged her. It also encouraged her uncle Mose Wright to say what he saw that night, to testify to what he saw that night on August 28th. The courtroom's packed with people. Emmett Till shows up for the interview with the media from all over the world, as the KKK had surrounded the area, hanging mannequins off the trees, and this whole onslaught of things. Rocks, throwing bottles. She walks into the courthouse. She gets to the 3rd step. There's a 9-year-old boy, points a cap gun in her direction and fires. She flinches as everyone laughs. People flood the courtroom. She was forced to sit in the back with the other relatives during the case. The first witness on the stand was Mose Wright. Everyone wondered, did he have the courage to point out these 2 men in court? If he does, he's a dead man. He knows it, everyone else knows it. The DA's office makes the statement, "Mr. Bright, do you see the men in this courtroom that came to your house that night?" They said, "You could cut the tension with a knife." Jet magazine and Life magazine took the famous picture of him standing up, pointing his finger, saying the words, "There he," as in there he is or there they are. The courtroom went nuts. Judge Schwango kept banging the gavel, order in the court, order in the court, and the outburst and throwing everybody out of here. He couldn't believe it. He's a dead man. Couldn't believe he did it. Next on the stand, Willie Green, the 19-year-old who said he saw the beating and described the green shirt and the brown pants that Milam had on washing down his truck. He was so scared they couldn't hear him talking. The judge had to keep asking him to speak up. He realized what was at stake. And he testified from his heart. He knew the consequences as well. Emmett Till takes a stand. Folks were amazed at her intellect, her vernacular, her professionalism, as she answered each question clearly. As they try to pin this thing on her as a joke. Said, your son's not really dead, is he? Isn't this some kind of scam by you and the NAACP? Isn't your son Emmett in Detroit with your father? She said, no, my father's sitting right there. No more questions, Your Honor. Last witness, 21-year-old Carol Bryant. She states that Emmett had walked in the store, got some gum, she put her hand out, and he grabbed it. She pulled her hand away and he said, don't be afraid of me, sweetheart. I've been with white women before. How about a date? That was it. He whistled and away out of the house. That's all the jury needed. 65 minutes later. 65 minutes later, the jury rendered a verdict that America could not believe. We, the jury, find the defendants, Roy Bryant and J.W. Milam, not guilty. Everybody shouted, they high-fived, they shot guns, they shot off fireworks. Maybe Till couldn't believe it. One of the jury members said, the only reason it was 65 minutes is so we could finish our cokes. The famous statement. We had to finish our cokes before we entered in the verdict. No justice. What was right? Went back to his home that night. Tossed and turned. Till about 1 o'clock in the morning, he got up, drove to his church. Right about 1:30, his neighbors recall a car pulling up to his house. 2 men get out, and they're searching. Of course, he's gone. Mose Wright packed his bags and moved to Chicago, along with Willie Green. Emmett Till tried to appeal. No chance. Everyone was excited that justice was served in the South. But the popularity of the case ran Bryant out of business. The general store closed. They needed money. So these two gentlemen decide to sell the story to Look magazine for $4,000, where they admit to the murder. It's double jeopardy. You can't send him to prison. They said, yeah, we took him and we murdered him, and we'll explain why and how. We were not going to kill the boy, but it was obvious he wasn't afraid of us. We were going to drive around and find a bluff. I was just going to hang him over the bluff, but I couldn't find the bluff. And he kept reiterating how he wasn't afraid. We took him to my shed and we beat him profusely. He kept telling us that he was equal to us. The sun came up. And I was getting afraid that someone was going to see us. So we drove him down the river. And I looked in the eye. And I said, so are you scared of us now? He said, no. I looked at him and said, is it true that you've been with white women before? He looked me in the eye and said, yeah, more than you. When he said that, I shot him. We took his clothes off. We rearranged his face. Removed his male genitalia. Found the barbed wire. I attached it to the cotton gin fan and tossed him in the river. The only mistake we made was we did not tie his feet with an anchor. Had we done that, you'd have never found the body. When that article came out, America was furious. It started with folks in Mississippi. They looked at Bryant Mile and said, "We don't even like you two clowns. We don't. But we stood by you anyway. We never want to see you again." 3 months after the verdict, December 1st, 1955, a seamstress hops on a Montgomery bus. She takes a seat. She's asked to go to the back. She said no. Rosa Parks said on 4 separate occasions, "I could not get the verdict and I could not get that boy's face out of my mind." So I said no. And that became the catalyst that changed America. Of course, we know that when she's arrested, there was a rally at a nearby church, and that church had a brand new pastor. The pastor's name was Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It became a movement. Started with the whistle of a 14-year-old boy. You know, I've often wondered what it would be like if Emmett Till and I were to have a conversation today. He'd probably try to justify his actions like a lot of 14-year-olds would when he said, "Byron, I didn't whistle that loud. I didn't think I whistled loud enough for her to hear me. I didn't whistle loud enough to cause my mother this heartache. I didn't whistle loud enough for them to do to me what they did. I didn't whistle that loud." My response is, "Mr. Till, you whistled loud enough. It changed America. You whistled loud enough that it caused a woman to have the courage to not give up her seat on the bus. You whistled loud enough that it gave the man the courage to stand before folks in Washington, D.C. on the 8th year to the very date of your murder, August 28, 1955, and a speech given August 28, 1963, where he said that he had a dream about my 4 children, 10-year-old Lexus, or 10-year-old Jordan, 8-year-old Alexis, 4-year-old Bryce, 2-year-old Trenton, that one day they'll grow up in a country that won't be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character." Oh, you whistle loud enough. That today, a white teacher can wrap her arms around her black students, her Asian students, her Latino students, and comfort them as she educates them. Oh, you whistle loud enough. That today, 2 little black girls are in Mississippi. 2 different skin colors and tones and backgrounds. And can play on a swing. And no one say nothing. You whistle loud enough. You whistle loud enough that my 2 girls can have a slumber party. With every color and creed. And the party wouldn't be loud enough. The party wouldn't be fun enough. It could not have lasted long enough had you not whistled loud enough. Oh, you whistled loud enough. It changed America. Folks, the message is simple. There are still whistles being blown in America. There are still acts of violence on children. There's still violence virtually everywhere. There's a whistle being blown in America. And the whistle of this 14-year-old boy called ordinary people to do extraordinary things. The question on the floor here this morning is a very simple one. Can you hear the whistle? You can't hear with your ears. These whistles you can only hear with your heart. It'll cause you to stop and change directions based on the infraction. When you hear the whistle with the heart, you then too become the catalyst to another whistle that helped change America. Now, there was a lot of stuff that I left out, obviously for the sake of time. There's a lot of information in this case, so typically when I do this at universities, I typically ask if anyone has any questions. Because there's a lot of things that are kind of hit and miss. Of course, we don't want to edit because of time. Does anyone have any questions about the case, the murder itself? Anything?
A round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
Any questions?
You're loud enough here.
Yes, of course.
Yes, sir.
How did you first get involved in this whole Emmett Till history, and tell us a little bit about your own background?
I remember my grandmother vaguely telling me the story, and being a baseball player, I took one official visit to a small college right outside of Money, Mississippi, and we took place for pizza right there on the river, and they began telling me this Tallahatchie River where the body of Emmett Till was found. And I always thought about it, and when I left baseball and got into speaking and consulting, it was around January, and I wanted a really good Black History Month presentation. And I read more about the story, and I just couldn't believe it. I knew the story, but I didn't know the story. I didn't know the trial. I didn't know, about Mamie Till and the whole scenario. And I think history is one of those things that it's more than facts and figures. It must be engaged with emotionally. So there was an emotional connection with the story, I think, and that's. And every year I read more and hear more. And his cousin, who was playing checkers on the porch, actually friended me on Facebook. Sure, I'll accept that one. I'll even like your page. So that's kind of how I got into it.
What happened to Bynum and Bryant?
Milam died in 1982, and of course Bryant and Roy Bryant, his wife, divorced. And Milam died in 82, Bryant died in 1994. What was so neat about the story was that both men had two children, both had two boys, and in 2005 made a huge public apology to the Till family and all of the attention, and just it was really, really cool.
Are there any other questions? Great questions. Let's give Byron Embry another round of applause. At this time, I would like to call up Mr. David Croft to give you a special presentation.
Oh, sure.
We really want to thank you, Byron. You are an outstanding speaker. That was very inspirational, and we really appreciate it. As a certificate of our appreciation, we want to present you with this plaque from the United States Mint at Denver. We wish to express our sincere appreciation for your inspiring presentation in recognition of National African American Month held this day February 6, 2014. Your contributions have earned an undying gratitude from the men and women of the Denver Mint. We really appreciate it. And I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to see this, but this is the baseball coin that we're making for the Baseball Hall of Fame. And, it's not going to be available till April, so I can let you look at it. We'd like to invite you back with your family for a tour, but we're going to give you, this is the baseball coin, you're welcome to look at it. But it's against the rules to let them out.
I see.
Just so everybody's aware, the baseball coin was developed basically through a design competition, and the design on the inside, it's a curved coin. The design on the inside was a glove designed by a person in California, and she received an award for that. The outside of the baseball is essentially the baseball with the threads on the on Beck's side. So it's pretty neat, and we will definitely get you one, and you're welcome to come back. And just so you don't forget, we actually have a picture of it. It's redeemable. You have my insurance, you'll get one. You just can't keep the planet. You just did a great job. That was an amazing story of American history, and we really appreciate it. Thank you. That was super. Thank you very much.
This is also on behalf of the men. Oh, thank you so much. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it. Great job. Thank you, Byron, for your enlightening presentation. Something must be wrong with the fans in here because my eyes were a little bit misty. We got to work on that. I know you have plenty of places to be this morning. I thank you for sharing your time with us. And as this presentation concludes, I'd like to take a moment to read you a passage from an unknown writer. Diversity is a gift of life. Without it, we would all be the same and life would be boring. We all live together in this world, yet we all experience life differently. Diversity provides a great opportunity to see life from a new perspective and experience a whole new world that we didn't see before. So discover it, learn from it, and continue to grow. I would like to thank Loretta Martin, also Patrick Brown and E.J. Bertrand for their assistance in making this program possible and a success. Also, Loretta did an outstanding job researching and putting together this grand civil rights display, so please take time to review it. And before we conclude, I'd like to call E.J. Bertrand to the stage for some announcements.
All right, so just two announcements. First off, today's presentation is a kickoff to the Price is Right contest. I don't know if you may have it in your inbox, and I'm sure you've seen the poster there and out front at the basement entrance there. So basically what this is it's a great way to promote maximum participation with our special observance events and diversity events. Contest rules, really all you need to do is sign in, and with that, when you sign in and you attend and participate, you need to participate at least 50% of the events for the calendar year. And then from that, within that pool of those that participate, 50% of the events for this year your name is put into a drawing. And towards the end of the year, we pull a drawing, and the prize is still to be determined, and it's definitely worth the wait. So I do encourage you and everyone else to come and participate. So before you leave, definitely do that. Second announcement, we have a feedback survey. Looks like this. Both Ann and Loretta has some readily available. Really, we would like to definitely get your comments in terms of how much you liked today's event and future events, and how you found it educational. But really, our office would really appreciate if you could take the time to make a comment in terms of how we can improve our educational awareness programs, or even also suggest a topic on what we could do in relation to EEO or diversity. There's also a section on the feedback survey if you'd like to also volunteer for any future events. And with that, does anyone have any questions regarding the contest and the feedback survey?
I had a question this morning from someone on off shift. They said, how is this going to work for those people that aren't serving day shift that can't attend the live presentation?
Yes, so good question. With that, we recorded today's event, so we're going to be showing it for off shifts too as well, and to make sure that everyone participates in today's event. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Send that electronically to everyone as well. So if we wish to give feedback,
okay, we can do that too, and we'll also you can turn it in here in the container now, or come and bring it back to the EO office. But I think you can do that too as well. Anything else? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, EJ. And this concludes our presentation. Thank you so much, everyone.